Usually, companies buy back the securities for three reasons. Reason number one, to increase the promoter stake in the company. Reason number two, to get rid of the idle funds and increase the return on equity. Reason number three, when the shares are underpriced in the market. So normally, those are the three common reasons for a buyback. Now let's shift our focus to the regulations part of the buyback. As per the regulations, buyback can be conducted through three methods. The first is the tender offer method. The second is the open market method. Buyback can be conducted through open market, either through the stock exchanges or through book building method. And the last method is the odd lots market method. Now let's take a look at the contents of the buyback regulations. There are total 7 chapters in the buyback regulations, including chapter 5A. Chapter 1 is preliminary, that is, it contains the definitions of various terms. Chapter 2 is conditions of buyback. Chapter 3 deals with the tender offer method and also with the odd lot market method. Chapter 4 deals with the open market method. Now coming to chapter 5, it deals with general obligations, while chapter 5A deals with SEBI's powers to relax the regulations in certain circumstances. And finally, chapter 6 is miscellaneous. The buyback regulations are applicable only to specified securities. The maximum limit of a buyback is 25% of the total of the paid up capital and free reserves. However, if the buyback is from the open market, then the buyback amount should be less than 15% of the total of the paid up capital and free reserves. The debt equity ratio post buyback, that is after the buyback, should be less than or equal to 2:1. However, in case of an NBFC or a housing finance company, a different debt equity ratio is applicable. The shares or the specified securities to be bought back should be fully paid up. Buyback should not be used as a method to delist a company's securities from a stock exchange. A buyback should not be conducted through negotiated deals or private arrangements. Buyback should not be conducted before the expiry of 1 year of a previous buyback. Buyback can be conducted out of the company's free reserves or securities premium account or proceeds from the issue of shares or other specified securities. However, the proceeds from the issue of same kind of shares or specified securities should not be used for buyback. Buyback is not allowed if the company defaulted in the repayment of deposits or term loans, or in the payment of interest or dividend, or in the redemption of debentures or preference shares. But if the default is remedied, then the buyback is permitted after 3 years. And finally, buyback is not permitted to be conducted through subsidiaries or through investment companies. If the buyback amount is less than or equal to 10% of the paid up capital and free reserves, then a board resolution is sufficient. But if the buyback amount is greater than 10% of the paid up capital and free reserves, then a special resolution is required. If the buyback requires a special resolution, then a notice along with an explanatory statement should be sent to the shareholders. Once the resolution is passed, the buyback process should be completed within 1 year from the date of the special resolution or from the date of the board resolution, whatever may be the case. Irrespective of the method of buyback, that is, whether it is tender offer method or buyback through open market or odd lots market, whatever is the method, a merchant banker should be appointed. In the tender offer method, first of all, the company will fix a buyback price and then it will invite all the existing shareholders to participate in the buyback process. And all those shareholders who are willing to offer their shares at that specific price can tender their shares, that is, offer their shares to the company for sale. Now let's look into all the regulatory aspects related to the tender offer method. Once the special resolution or the board resolution is passed, as the case may be, the company should make a public announcement of the buyback through the newspapers, and a copy of this announcement should be submitted to SEBI. After submitting the announcement copy to SEBI, within the next 5 days, the company should submit a draft letter of offer and a declaration of solvency to SEBI. The company should also pay the relevant fee to SEBI. Normally, the merchant banker takes care of all these formalities on behalf of the company. After receiving the draft letter of offer, SEBI may pass its comments or it may ask for some changes or additional information. So, the company should provide the requested clarifications or information. And in some cases, the company is required to make changes to the draft letter of offer. First of all, the company should announce the record date. Therefore, only those shareholders whose names are registered as on the record date will be eligible to participate in the buyback process. Once the record date is set, the company will dispatch the tender forms to all eligible participants. But what if, for some reason, the company failed to send the tender form, whether physical or digital, to some of the eligible shareholders? Does it mean that those shareholders cannot participate in the buyback process? No, that's not fair. That's why, even in such situations, the eligible shareholders should be able to participate in the buyback process. All they have to do is follow SEBI's guidelines. That's it. The company should make a deposit into the escrow account either before or at least up to the time of opening of the buyback offer. The amount that should be deposited into the escrow account is, if the consideration is less than or equal to rupees 100 crores, then the escrow amount is 25% of the consideration. However, if the consideration is greater than rupees 100 crores, then 25% of the consideration up to 100 crores and 10% of the balance consideration should be deposited. The escrow deposit should be made in the following form: cash deposited with a scheduled commercial bank, or bank guarantee in favor of the merchant banker, or acceptable securities with appropriate margin with the merchant banker, or a combination of the above. The cash which is deposited with a scheduled commercial bank can be maintained either in an interest bearing account or in a non-interest bearing account. But if the escrow deposit is a bank guarantee or acceptable securities, then the company should deposit at least 1% of that amount as security. Whatever is the form of the escrow account, it is the merchant banker who will have the power to deal with the escrow account until the completion of the buyback process. Once the buyback process is completed, the escrow amount will be released back to the company. If SEBI feels that the company did not fulfill its buyback obligations, then it can forfeit the escrow amount either in part or in full. The forfeited amount will be paid on a pro rata basis to the securities holders who participated in the buyback, and if there is any balance amount left, it will be credited to Investor Education and Protection Fund. To make the payment to the securities holders who have tendered their shares during the buyback, the company should open a special bank account with one of the banks which is registered with SEBI, and then the company should deposit the buyback amount into that special account. But how much amount should be deposited into this special account? Because the company has already made some deposit into the escrow account. The amount deposited into the special account should be greater than or equal to total buyback amount minus 90% of the escrow deposit. So, speaking indirectly, the amount deposited into the special account together with 90% of the amount deposited into the escrow account should be at least equal to the total buyback amount. Once the amount is deposited into the special account, the company should verify the offers received and then it should make the payment to the respective shareholders within 7 days. Once the buyback process is completed, the company should extinguish the shares and destroy them. If the shares are physical certificates, then they should be destroyed in the presence of the registrar or the merchant banker. The auditor should also be present during the destruction. But if they are demat securities, then they should be destroyed as per SEBI guidelines. After the destruction of securities, the company should submit a report to SEBI, submit the relevant details to the stock exchanges, and it should maintain a register of the bought back shares. So, that was the process of buyback through tender offer method. Now, when it comes to buyback through odd lots market, the same provisions of tender offer method are applicable with necessary changes. That's it. Entitlement refers to the minimum number of shares that a shareholder is entitled to tender during a buyback. For example, let's say a shareholder holds 1000 shares and his entitlement ratio as decided by the company is 30%. So, if the shareholder tenders greater than or equal to 300 shares, then the company will buy back at least 300 shares. But if the shareholder tenders less than 300 shares, then the company will buy back all the shares that have been tendered. Based on the entitlement, shareholders can be classified into two categories. Number one, the small shareholders, that is, retail investors who hold up to 2 lakh worth of securities of the company. And number two, general category shareholders, that is, shareholders other than the small shareholders. As per SEBI regulations, at least 15% of the buyback should be made from small shareholders and the remaining from the general shareholders. So, that is how the entitlement ratio is calculated. Now, let us see what happens if some shareholders tender less than their entitlement while some shareholders tender more than their entitlement. Let us say within a particular category of shareholders, some shareholders tendered more than their entitlement, some shareholders tendered less than their entitlement, and a few shareholders did not tender any shares. In such a case, the company is allowed to adjust the deficit of some shareholders with the excess shares tendered by other shareholders within the same category. Similarly, if there is a deficit of shares surrendered by one category of shareholders, then it can be adjusted with the surplus of shares surrendered by the other category of shareholders. When it comes to the order of adjustment, first the deficits within a particular shareholder category should be adjusted with the excess shares tendered within that category. And after this adjustment is done, if there is still any deficit in a shareholder category on an overall basis, then it can be adjusted with the surplus of the other shareholder category. Acceptance ratio is the shares bought back by the company as a percentage of the shares tendered by the shareholders. Therefore, acceptance ratio is equal to total number of shares bought back divided by total number of shares tendered into 100. For example, if the shareholders tendered 3 lakh shares in total and if the company accepted 1.8 lakh shares, then the acceptance ratio is 60%. The acceptance ratio is calculated separately for small shareholders and general shareholders. The acceptance ratio cannot be calculated until the buyback process is completed, whereas the entitlement ratio is calculated in advance and it is also mentioned in the letter of offer. The acceptance ratio depends on two factors. Number one, shareholder participation. The more the shareholder participation in the buyback, the lower is the acceptance ratio, and vice versa. And the second factor is percentage of shares tendered by the shareholders. If the shareholders tender a very high percentage of their shares compared to their entitlement ratio, then the acceptance ratio will be low, and vice versa. So both these factors are inversely proportional to acceptance ratio. Hi, in the previous video we discussed the concepts of entitlement ratio and acceptance ratio. In this video we shall discuss chapter 4 buyback from the open market and chapter 5 general obligations. We shall also discuss briefly chapter 5a and chapter 6. Let's start with chapter 4. In one of the previous videos, we discussed the buyback process through the tender offer method and also from the odd lots market. In addition to these two methods, the shares can be bought back directly from the open market, either through the stock exchanges or through the book building mechanism. In case of a buyback through the open market, the maximum buyback price, that is, the maximum price at which the company is willing to buy the shares during the buyback, should be specified in the board resolution. This rule is applicable only for a buyback through the open market method. Now let's have a detailed discussion on the two sub-methods of the open market method, that is, buyback through the stock exchange route and through the book building route. Let's start with the stock exchange route first. The first thing to remember about the buyback through stock exchanges, the promoters or those who are in control of the company should not participate in the buyback. I repeat, the promoters or those who are in control of the company should not participate in the buyback through the stock exchange. A buyback through stock exchange can be conducted only through those stock exchanges that have nationwide trading terminals. As of now in India, there are only two stock exchanges that have nationwide trading terminals, that is NSE and BSE. So indirectly speaking, buyback through stock exchange can be conducted in India only through NSE or through BSE. The buyback should be conducted through the order matching mechanism of the stock exchange. But all or none orders are not allowed. Let's try to understand the concept of all or none orders with an example. Let's say you put an order for 500 shares and that order will be executed only if the other party puts a counter order for at least 500 shares. So either all or none. So in an all or none order, partial execution is not possible. That's why such all or none orders are not allowed for buyback. Now coming to the other formalities, that is making a public announcement, filing a copy of that public announcement with SEBI, all these steps are similar to the tender offer method. However, a major distinction between the open market method and the tender offer method is, in case of open market method, the company need not issue the letter of offer. So in a tender offer method, the company should make a public announcement and should also issue a letter of offer. Whereas in the open market method, whether it is through the stock exchange or through book building, the company makes only a public announcement. It need not issue a letter of offer. Now let's look at the actual buyback process. The company will place its buy order on the electronic trading platform of the stock exchange, just like how we all place our orders in our trading account. and if the order matches with a counter order, then it gets executed. That's it. But one interesting thing to note is, when the company places the buy order, the company's name will appear on the trading screen. Normally, when we place our buy or sell orders, our names will not appear on the trading screen. The trades usually happen anonymously, that is, the buyer doesn't know who the seller is and vice versa. But in case of a buyback, the buyer's name, that is, the company's name will be disclosed. And at the end of each trading day, the company should disclose to SEBI its current buyback status. This process goes on daily until the completion of the buyback. What if the company wants to buy physical shares in addition to demat shares? In such a case, the company should open a separate window for the physical shares, and the buyback price for the physical shares should be equal to the weighted average purchase price of the demat shares which were bought back in the preceding calendar week. Just like in the case of the tender offer method, in this case also the company should open an escrow account. You can refer the regulations on the escrow account directly during the examination. That is, regulations on how much amount should be deposited and in what form it should be deposited, etc. This is an important point, so please pay attention. Whatever the funds the company sets aside for the buyback, the company should utilize at least 50% of those funds. By 50%, I am not referring to the amount that is deposited in the escrow account. I am referring to the amount set aside for the buyback process. So, at least half of the amount set aside for buyback should be used for buyback. And if the company fails to do so, then SEBI can forfeit up to 2.5% of the amount set aside for buyback. SEBI will forfeit the amount from the company's escrow account and will credit the amount to the Investor Education and Protection Fund. However, SEBI may decide not to forfeit the amount if the company gives proper justification for not complying with this rule. The regulations on extinguishment of shares bought through stock exchange are almost similar to the regulations on extinguishment of shares bought through the tender offer method. However, there could be a few contextual differences, but there are no conceptual differences. So, those were all the regulations on buyback through stock exchanges. Now, let's move on to the next concept, that is buyback through book building method. During the ICDR regulations, we discussed how companies issue shares to the public through the book building method. Now, let's look at the buyback of shares through the book building method. Actually, the issue of shares through book building and the buyback of shares through book building are similar to each other, but there are a few differences. Let's take a look at those. In the ICDR regulations, the book building method is used to sell the shares, whereas in buyback, the book building method is used to buy the shares. Therefore, in the book build issue as per the ICDR regulations, the quotes are arranged in the descending order of the price and then the cutoff price is determined. Whereas in the buyback, the quotes are arranged in the ascending order of the price and then the cutoff price is determined. Once the cutoff price is determined, all the shares that have been accepted should be bought back at the same price, which is the cutoff price. I repeat, the buyback price for all accepted shares should be the same. Now, coming to the other regulations on book building method, they are very simple to follow. You can refer them directly during the exam. Actually, the content for the book building method is very small, just one page. Now, before we move on to the next topic, let me remind you this. A company can buy back the shares from the promoters either through the tender offer method or through book building method. But a company is not allowed to buy back the shares from the promoters or from those who are in control of the company through stock exchange. Please keep that in your mind. General obligations are the conditions that the company should meet during the buyback and after the buyback. Let's take a look at those general obligations. The company should not issue any shares, including bonus shares or other specified securities, till the expiry of the buyback period. The company should not raise further capital up to 1 year from the date of expiry of the buyback period. However, this rule does not apply to any stock option plans or warrants or convertible securities. The buyback consideration should be in the form of cash or bank payments. The buyback should not be withdrawn after making the public announcement or after filing the draft letter of offer with SEBI. The promoters or their associates should not deal in specified securities until the offer is closed. A buyback should not be conducted during an amalgamation. The company should not buy back locked-in securities. Not only the company, the merchant banker also has certain responsibilities and obligations. The merchant banker should ensure that the company satisfies all the relevant regulations. The merchant banker should perform its duties with respect to the escrow account. And at last, once the buyback process is completed, the merchant banker should submit a final report to SEBI. So that was all about Chapter 5. Now let's move on to Chapter 5a, SEBI's power to relax strict enforcement of regulations. Regulations are meant to protect the interests of various stakeholders. But with the passage of time, new and innovative methods get introduced, and therefore the regulations should also change accordingly. But before changing the regulations, the new and innovative methods should be tested first. That's why, to encourage a company to test how a new or innovative method works, SEBI may relax some of the regulations. But SEBI will relax these regulations only if the company submits an application to SEBI in this regard. So remember, relaxation is given to only those companies which submit an application to SEBI and for the sole purpose of testing new or innovative methods. The process of testing new or innovative methods on a limited number of customers for a limited period of time is known as the regulatory sandbox. Now coming to the last topic, that is Chapter 6 Miscellaneous. This chapter deals with SEBI's powers to issue directions, its power to remove difficulties, and its power to relax strict enforcement of regulations on a case-to-case basis. However, the relaxation is provided only if the company makes an application and pays a non-refundable fee of Rs 50,000. But remember, SEBI can relax compliance with only buyback regulations. It cannot relax compliance with Companies Act or other enactments.